myself, Vivian Chuene, a podcast where we discuss all things centered around music, where we sit down with your favorite musicians and we talk about their journey and where they've been. I know that we have not had this in a while, but before I introduce my guest for this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, everything. We're on YouTube, we're on all podcast platforms, Apple Music, Spotify, we're on it. Right, so today joining me, I have an amazing and multi-talented musician. She is a pianist, she's a vocalist, she's a composer, she's an arranger, and I mean, we could go on, but I have the very talented Thandi Ntuli joining me. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad we actually managed to get this going. Finally. Yeah.
I mean, I've been trying to have her on the podcast because, you know, she's one of those musicians that you have to sit down with and just to kind of like get where their headspace is, you know, what their thinking is. Before we get into the conversation, I just want to say thank you so much. We're coming to you from the Jazz Room in Doppio Zero in Rosebank. Thank you so much for, you know, the guys here at the Jazz Room for allowing us to use the space and, you know, to just be here and bless them with this conversation. So, my darling, how have you been?
I've been wonderful.
Yeah?
And it surprises me when that's my answer, but I mean, it's a mix of things, but I think mostly I've been great.
I'm so happy to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that.
How have you been?
I have been, hey, I'm alive. So I think for me, what is important for me is for us to kind of like get people into, you know, the thought process of the music, the story behind the music, because this is what it is. Coffee Conversations is about the story behind the music. Let's talk about, you know, the beginning. Let's go back. Let's take it back to Thandi Ntuli, growing up in Soshanguve, you know, this girl that is, you know, she's so young. At 4 years old, you started playing the piano, right?
My earliest memory of playing the piano was not actually at the age of 4. I think if I didn't get told that when I started, I wouldn't know that. But I think I remember playing in primary school, and I think the reason I remember is because you know, when I wanted to go and play outside, I always had to practice before I go and play. It was just like, gosh. Yeah. So this thing of playing music, as much as I liked it, was always something that was coming in between my social life as a child. But I did enjoy it because my mother did give me options to stop, and I'm like, no, I don't want to stop. Yeah. I played piano, classical music, and I also grew up in a home where we loved ucula, to sing. When we came together, my father had a choir that he would, you know, take just as a side thing at a place in Garangoa called Itireleng. And I think in a way music was always around. Music was always playing in the home. When we had gatherings, there was always singing and music playing, dancing, lots of fun. So yeah, my earliest memories of music were just as a part of our life growing up.
So you've already spoken about how you were surrounded by music, you know, at home. But let's talk about, you know, the influence that had on you in terms of where you are now. I know that your uncle was also a guitarist, a pianist, and a lead vocalist back in the 70s, you know. But how has that shaped you, you know, as a musician? How you know, the influence around the family, the home, and growing up, you know, with this music thing, how has that influenced and shaped you as a musician?
I definitely think it's shaped my sensibilities around music. You know, I think when I think about what I'm attracted to and what music gets put out of me, it's really a mixture of all that I grew up around. So as much as I perform and release music and am known under the jazz title, you know, I definitely think all the influences somehow find their way into my music. whether it be classical, choral music, whether it be African music, whether it be music of the 70s, both locally and abroad. There were so many different tastes of music. Then I had a big family, and everyone has their sort of type of thing. My brothers were into the hip hop. Then there was a sister who loved punk rock, and so all those different loves of music somehow came through just my surroundings. And I think that's influenced the fact that I don't like being tied into genres.
Yeah. So here you are, a young Thandi Ntuli, you're growing up, and you know this music, and you're surrounded by it. At what point in your life did you decide that you're actually going to take this on and make a career out of it? I know that you went to UCT and you studied jazz, but at what point did that decision come where you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take it on, I'm going to, continue and make a career out of it?
I don't think it was one decision. I think it was a series of different moments.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do one thing and it leads to another. I think when I realized that I wanted to write music, I was 16. And I was practicing in the evening, because I was in boarding school, so I was practicing in the Performance Arts Center in the evening, and was very lonely to practice, as always. Even as a child I was lonely, but it was quite lonely practicing because there were about 5 students who were doing music in my grade. But I loved the music that I was practicing, and then I thought, wow, I wonder how it would be to write my own stuff.
Wow.
It was just kind of from that thought or that question that started getting me intrigued about writing. So I started fidgeting, writing really terrible songs. But I would write songs, a friend's birthday, I'd write a song, whatever.
Yeah.
Then I performed at one of the school events, and the choir master at the time was really like, he started pushing me and saying, you've got to do this, seriously, you've got to take singing lessons, this is, and he was all hyped about it, and I was like, okay, he eventually had a conversation with my dad, and my dad was just like, what is this guy talking about? But the momentum grew from there, I think, till the point when I was in matric, and grade 11, when you start choosing your path and the universities you want to apply for. But I definitely credit his encouragement, because I probably would not have thought of the possibility of me being a composer had he not encouraged what I was writing at the time. I loved singing. I was always in school choirs. In high school I was in the chamber choirs, and we'd have again these inter-house music things where you sing in little groups, and we're there trying to sing Boys to Men, girls trying to sing Boys to Men. I don't even remember who was singing the bass part, but we were trying anyway. But I loved that, and I love singing as a group. And again, I think it comes from my home. It just feels like home to sing in groups, to sing with other people. It's like one of the feelings that I really associate with home the most. So it was more of a love, and I think when I started, fast forward to when I'm like releasing music and all that, why I started singing was because I felt that although in my first project where I worked a lot with Uspandla Lose, my second project really felt like I needed to say these things. This was my voice I was hearing saying these things. So I guess my producer brain, composer brain, usually has a voice in mind, whether it's an instrumental voice or a vocal voice. And in the second album, it just felt right for me to be the one to sing the songs.
So you've already, touched on the albums. Let's move into that, the making of the music. In 2014, you released The Offering, which is still, it's such a beautiful body of work. And I think I always go back to it, in moments where you need prayer. More than anything, there's not a lot of lyrics on it, but just the melody and everything around the song is just so calming, so healing. So let's talk about the offering. Let's talk about how it came about, and what was happening in your life at the time of the making of the offering.
Well, thank you for that. The offering was, I guess, a collection of music that I had been writing since I started studying. So when I'm in university, I enter the jazz school at Cape Town. A lot of new music and a lot of information coming at me because I haven't really learned to play jazz and all that. So I was listening to a lot of music, like it was literally a daily ritual to go to the school library and go and listen to something. And I actually miss that practice of listening so intently and so frequently, because as I've grown older and busier, it's not it's more of a luxury to be able to sit and listen. But I definitely was taking in a lot of new stuff, and it was inspiring me. So I wrote a lot of songs while I was still studying, and I think from the offering, the last song that I really actually wrote was HT. And I guess what was happening in that album was that why I called it the offering was because I wasn't sure, confident how I'd be received, but I really felt like, well, I've got to give this music, because every time I have shows, people are like, where can we get your CD? And I'm like, there's no CD. So it was kind of like a way for me to say, look, I may not be the artist that I think I should be.
How HT came about. That song was written 3 weeks before your grandmother passed away, and that was almost paying homage to the woman that she was in your life. Let's talk a bit about that time when you wrote that song, and your grandmother passing away 3 weeks later.
At the time, my grandmother was suffering from dementia, so I actually wrote the song kind of feeling nostalgic about the relationship I used to have with her. And it was just a little tribute to her. I found it amazing that she passed on three weeks after, and I'm grateful that I got a chance to write something for her while she was still alive, because she was an incredible woman. And she had a huge impact on my life.
So let's talk about, you speak a lot about, the energetic exchange between musicians and how chemistry for you is so important when it comes to the making of the music. Let's talk about some of the musicians that you have worked with on that album, and how you came about, choosing to work with them. Let's talk about that process itself.
Well, the way I think about a band, and a lot of people, think that it's just about booking a person who plays that instrument. There have been many times when, I've turned down a gig because certain people can't make it. And then I do have the choice whether to think of, do I find a replacement, or
just
we not do the gig. I think what I've realized about music is that, just as in the same way with conversation with people, you're going to say what you want to say and contribute to conversations based on how you feel in the group. So in groups where you feel awkward, you'll say less, you won't give your best, you'll put things here and there. And I think over time, building this group of musicians that I've worked with has come from that fact that we're comfortable around each other off the band stage, and we're able to have conversations. And then as we play the music, there's just a synergy, and like even just with putting together a guitar player that plays well with a pianist, that's not always an obvious thing, but Keenan and I work well together as chordal instruments. And then the horns, do they sound well together, do they blend, do they work well together? So those are the kind of things that I think of, and then also just the energy between us as people. It's about the people first.
Yeah. And why music?
As in, why do I do music?
Why music? Why
I need it. I need it. I need it. Yeah, I mean, it's such a cliche, but I didn't choose it. I don't believe I chose it.
Yeah.
I believe that it's kind of like something that's in me, you know. And I mean, also not to make it sound too mystical and like too out there, because I do think that sometimes it's just about, but I need it. My spirit needs it. I enjoy it. Most of the songs that I've written have come from my own personal need. And not so much like, let me do this so that this and then that can happen. Obviously, you can think that way, and you can expand on your initial ideas that way, but yeah, it's, for me, I need it, so it's my thing. I guess like some people write, which I also like writing and journaling. That's also a thing for me. Everyone has their thing.
You know? And music is your thing.
And music is my thing, Some people, they sit in front of the mirror, they do their makeup for fun. Some people, they dress up and get really good outfits, and it's just a privilege to be able to make my thing a career path. You know?
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's amazing. So, before I confirmed that we're going to be sitting down and having a conversation, I went back to the first time I experienced you live. So I think it was either Joy of Jazz or a Rebirth of Cool. But I remember that I was just so mind blown, you know, by how talented you are, you know. And I remember you were doing Little Dragons twice. And you did it so beautifully. I was like, oh my God, who is this girl? You know? But tell me about those moments of, you know, performing live with the audience and people that are just lovers of your music.
Thank you. I remember and miss those gigs.
Oh man!
It means freedom for me. It means freedom. I think I've had this mild obsession with freedom. Like, if I look back and I look at my songs and the things I write, and even in my journals, I'm like, ooh, why every time freedom?
You know,
Maybe in my past life I was like a freedom fighter.
Freedom fighter, yeah.
But I think it's freedom, and stage is a place for me that allows that freedom to be what I want to be in that moment. People who come to your show, they already bring an energy of, I paid money because I want to come to your show. So there's a very supportive energy that allows for me to be as free as possible. But it's also the audiences, they come with, like, I think they come with beautiful energy, and it contributes to everything. It's a very intoxicating place to be, you know, on stage. And I mean, I remember those gigs, sometimes they would go on way longer.
My God!
than they were supposed to, because it was just like the crowd was feeding it, and we were feeling it. So yeah, I love that energy exchange, and it's like, it's freeing, and I think the freedom that I get to feel is shared with the audience, shared with the musicians. We're all sharing this energy, and everyone just feels elevated by the whole experience. So yeah, that's what I love about stage, is that I can be whatever in that moment. And it's great.
I don't know if you have not experienced her live. I don't know where you have been, because wow, it's one of those things in life you have to just see, you know. So Exiled. It's that album. that album literally, I don't know, it's a masterpiece. It's so beautiful. So let's talk about, you know, the thinking behind Exiled. Every time I play that album, I just go to a very different place, you know. And I want us to just unpack. Let's unpack the album itself, you know, the music that you put together, that you wrote. Yeah, let's talk about Exiled. I think as we go, we'll unpack the songs. I have a couple of songs that I want us to unpack, but let's talk about Exiled and, you know, the making of the album itself, how it came about, you know, the writing, you know, and what is the thinking behind it?
That's a tough question to answer because there's a lot. It's very layered, and I think mainly what I can say is that very much like my first album, the idea behind Exiled came as a result of looking at all the songs that were being written. So I didn't start with the concept and say I'm going to write music under this theme, but I realized that there was a thread and a theme, multi-layered across the different songs that I was writing at the time. So I guess that was the reason I put it together, why I called it Exiled. Yeah.
I have, in fact, that whole album, I think, for me is every song on it is such a favorite. But there are a couple of songs that I want us to unpack, you know. Let's start with Cosmic Light, because I think it's one of the songs that I remember when the album came out. It was on rotation, you know, on most radio stations, and I remember hearing it and I thought, oh my God, what a beautiful song. Let's talk about what that song means for you and why you wrote it, you know. Oh cosmic light, you shine so brightly, yet your night is darker than these eyes can see, you know. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and, you know, personally I connect with the message behind the song. But let's talk about, you know, the writing of the song and what it means for you.
I think that's what it is, you know. I think it does mean a lot of things to a lot of people, and I think that's the beauty of art. And I think it's important for me, it's important to give space to the music to mean what it needs to mean to other people. So I think where people hear it is where it is for them. Many times I've listened to things that have changed over time, and that's more a reflection of me than the actual music that I'm listening to. So yeah, I guess that if you want a solid idea of what it was a prayer for me, but I think I also say that without wanting to impose what it meant for me to everybody who listens to it.
Yeah. And then there's a song like, when I listen to the song, I'm just like, yo, wait again. Thandi is so deep, guys. A song about healing, you know, and asking for space to be allowed for you to go through this healing process, you know. Sure, yeah.
That's it.
That is it, right?
That is it, yeah. That is it. I think, you know, Black people in South Africa and around the world have been asked for way too much, I think, in the sense of not having any reverence around our struggles. There's none, you know. To this day, there's reverence around the experience of the Jewish people, the Holocaust. There's reverence around, you know, there's always just some space given to people who have suffered, and we don't get that as Black people. We don't get that. It's just like, okay guys, it was 20 whatever years ago, let's just move on, you know. And you know, there's there's no kind of commemoration, there's no respect from the outside world, but specifically in South Africa, from the ones we are supposed to be building a rainbow nation with. It's almost like the rainbow nation is our work, you know, alone.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me. That's what it feels like, I think, to a lot of South Africans, that making South Africa a nice place to live is the responsibility of the ones who are hurt. You know, so we must get over it. We must not talk about the pain anymore or the past. We must just keep moving, because it's uncomfortable for us to hear you talking about that part of our history. And I think, I think that's not fair for me. I think so. New Wave was, you know, I like to. There's a song of Stevie Wonder's called Visions, and it's kind of like, it's a song that he wrote years ago, but still hasn't kind of manifested. You know, his vision hasn't manifested. So in that same way, New Wave for me was like, what if we could do it like this? What if we could actually just be allowed to feel the pain, and everyone would heal from this, I believe. You know, so that's what New Wave was about. In a sense, it was directly sparked by an incident of I remember this lady, who was killed. And it was just, I don't know if there was a lot of, I mean, femicide is a continuing problem in South Africa, but I think around the time when I wrote it, there were just a lot of these stories coming up in the news, and it was like, it was just heavy on my soul. So you know.
Another song that I really love on New Way is Beautiful, by the way. Thank you for that work. You know, I think it's important to reflect on those kind of issues, you know, in the time that we live in. One of my favorite songs that I really vibe to is Complicated. Part 2 with Vuyo Sadashe. You know, I love that the collaboration between, you know, the two of you. I think it's so beautiful, and I think the messaging behind the song itself, you know, there are many ways to say that you love somebody, and that's really what it is, you know. But let's talk about how that song came about, you know, the writing behind it. Hey, what was happening?
That one was a very personal one. So it was a particular relationship in my life that was complicated. So I think I wrote it because I was realizing that sometimes love does not look like being together and living happily ever after. And I thought it would be great to have Vuyo's voice on it because of Vuyo's voice.
Come on, no?
First of all, because of his voice. Moment of silence for his voice.
I mean, honestly.
But also just to have a male voice on there. You know.
And so last year, during lockdown, you gave us a brilliant, you know, body of work. You gave us Exiled, which was recorded live in Switzerland. Tell me about that process. Tell me about, you know, those moments of you traveling, making music outside, and giving us that beautiful.
It's a festival that's organized by artists. Very cool festival, and one of the organizers who has been to South Africa and spent some time here, and is a friend of mine, when he was speaking to me about performing there, he was saying that I have free reign to do whatever I want. So I was like, oh my gosh, okay. I've always
like
wanted
a kid in a candy store for an artist.
What can I do? I've always wanted, and in fact, when I thought of Exiled, the sound was big. but I couldn't get it as big on the album. But he was like, sure, we'll have a lot of musicians, you can have a lot of musicians in there. So I arranged the music. I chose a few songs, not the whole album, but I arranged the music, performed it, and then it wasn't actually even intended to be released. It was just performing. They told me they would record it. The recording was great, and I just thought of sharing that moment in time because I think it was a once-off, and I don't think it's something that will necessarily happen in the near future again. In that way that it did.
Yeah, but you also took it out at, COVID showed us film, so you took it out. I think the timing for it was just so perfect because a lot of us needed something to sort of like connect to, and that was that. Music was that. Tell me about some of your healing moments. That music has brought you to.
Music, and particularly making music, but music in general, it gives me an awareness of what's happening inside me, and I've actually been spending a lot of time on the idea of healing, and I think it's a condition that creates all these other problems. I think, violence in our society is a symptom of one being exiled from themselves. I think not letting another human being have the space and giving them compassion in their healing journey is symptomatic of being exiled from yourself. I think corruption in government is a symptom of being exiled.
It goes back to that,
I think there's just that removal from one's own soul, and I think music, for me, does that. It's the kind of tuning fork that helps me realize what's actually happening inside me. I think. Sorry, please take me back to your question. I just lost my train of thought.
Healing moments.
So in terms of healing, I think awareness is the very first step of healing. And I think once you're aware of what's happening inside of you, you get the choice to actually do something about something.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
So in many ways, that's why I said earlier on that I need music. Because it's like I don't know what I would use to kind of process being a human being and being on this earth without it.
And what sits at the core of your soul?
We went there.
Yeah, we're there.
like no warning, no like.
Let's take it in.
Here's where we're going now. You mean philosophically, or like
just what sits there? What sits there?
I think it's love. Yeah, I think it's love. I think it's like divinity.
And in terms of your music, your journey, what are you looking forward to the most? What are you excited about?
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Just always excited. And then the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know, the more I realize I don't know, the more I realize I haven't tried.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa,
and it just leads
I need a clone or 5.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about what I can still create. I feel very good about the fact that I've come to a place of being at peace with this word jazz, and because I think earlier, specifically after university, and what you're told at university, this is what jazz is, this is what it isn't, da 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 da. Those people are not playing jazz, those people are playing jazz.
Yeah.
I think I've come to a place of being at peace with, I make music, and I really like jazz so much, and it feeds me. But I really like so many different genres.
Yeah.
And so I'm just gonna make something.
Yeah.
And sometimes people will feel it's jazz, sometimes think it's more like soul, whatever. But I'm enjoying that. I feel like I've reached a place where I'm like, okay with not being told that you're not jazz. And okay, it's fine. And I'm excited about what that will give me the freedom to create as well.
And in terms of, you know, influences when it comes to music, what would you say has been the biggest, you know, influencer of your music, the sound, you know, how it comes about, how it comes to life?
I don't think there's a biggest influence on my sound. I think my influence is my life experiences. Sometimes I'm influenced by things I read, you know, it's not always musical. Sometimes I'm influenced by something I watch, like a movie, or, you know, I mean, I watched this thing on Netflix yesterday where I was like it just touched me, and it's like a food documentary. I also love food, but it's like a food documentary, and my heart was just, I felt like I was watching, you know, the most beautiful movie ever, but it's a food documentary that it really moved me, and just there was stories shared in there that really inspired me. So the inspiration comes from everywhere.
From many different
it's not just, you know, as copy and paste as like, oh, that is a nice horn line inspired, you know.
Well, look, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. I can't wait to see what else you are creating, because you're always giving us beautiful music. You're always blessing us. I wish you nothing but the best on, you know, on your musical journey, on your journey, you know, as a human. And yeah, congratulations on your summer nomination.
Thank you.
But before we go, tell me about some of the musicians you'd still like to work with, collaborate with.
So many. There's so many.
Well, we'll discuss it. I am going to have her back on Coffee Conversations when she brings back that summer.
Hey.
You know, she's an award winner already. But thank you so much, Thandi. I really appreciate
Thank you, Vivian, and
this
thanks for
time
having
with
me.
you. I can't wait for us to, you know, chat again. And thank you so much for listening, for watching. Please do continue to like, subscribe, share, so that we can grow. You know, this is your favorite music podcast where we discuss all things music. It is the story behind the music. And thank you for watching Coffee Conversations with myself, Vivian Chuene.